JJ Kool-Aid. JJ Kool-Aid. JJ Kofisa. JJ Kofisa. Kofisa Langa. Kofisa Langa. Kakashilanga. Kakashilanga. Kum Adai-Day. Kum Adai-Day. Kum Adai-Day. Hey! JJ Kool-Aid. JJ Kool-Aid. JJ Kofisa. JJ Kofisa. Kofisa Langa. Kofisa Langa. Kakashilanga. Kakashilanga. Kum Adai-Day. Kum Adai-Day. Kum Adai-Day. Hey! Koriko. Ah, yambala, yambala, mama. Ah, yambala, yambala, mama. Koriko. Ah, yambala, yambala, mama. Ah, yambala, yambala, mama.
Welcome to Wellspring Wednesday. Wherever you are, we are glad you are with us today. Please enter fully into worship by lighting your chalice or candle and singing and praying along with Drew and I, and Simon on the piano. As we are experiencing right now in our nation, there are people who have positions of power and roles of authority who do not seem to understand or care about the responsibility that comes with authority, nor have the same shared values that we do here at Unity or practice integrity in the way that we encourage. It is necessary to question how people come into roles of authority without mutually beneficial moral values or grounded in a sense of responsibility that is beyond their own. When we are faced with such a leader, what is asked of us? Come, let us worship together.
Join us in singing Love Will Guide Us.
On the road from great
week, we take the time to listen to the joys and sorrows alive in our congregation. Together we celebrate, we grieve, and we tenderly hold what is as well as what we long for. Drew and I will continue to reach out via email to ask families to share with us, and feel free to send us your joys and sorrows whenever you are so moved. This week we are sharing from the families of third graders as well as a few others. From the Rule family, our joy this week was playing a game together as a family. From third grader Sammy Williams, my joy is taking snowboarding class weekly, and my sorrow is not having more time with my friends. From the Kujewski family, joy is birthdays. This side of cancer, birthdays are a splendid gift. And our sorrow is that it's hard to be away from family during these tough times. From third grader Anna Funk, my joy is being together with family so much during COVID, and my sorrow is not being able to be present with some friends right now. From the 4-year-old Lucas Schicker, I have a joy of my secret fort under the couch. From the Arzamandia family, a joy is being able to get outside and do fun winter activities. A sorrow is the unrest happening in our country. From Rocio Hernandez, my joy is that I got things to make Valentines for my friends and family, and I love making things. My sorrow is that I miss sledding and skating with my friends. And from the whole Hernandez family, our joy is the new administration starting on Wednesday and closing the door on a very traumatic 4 years with this past administration. And will you pray with me? Spirit of life, justice, and love, help us to remember to ask, who are we, and who ought we be to one another, especially now when it's challenging to be physically together, and yet increasingly clear how interconnected and interdependent we are. In asking, who are we, may we indeed take the time and space to celebrate birthdays and family time, fun winter activities and secret forts, and the insistence of democracy and a new voted-in administration. Give us the courage to face what comes when the horrific parts of our history that continue today become more and more unveiled. Without justice, there cannot be peace, and without peace, there cannot be justice. May we know both. May we be both. May it be so. And amen.
This will be a total surprise, but when I was a kid, I had a reputation of being something of a wise guy. I gave a hard time to the people who were in charge of activities. I know, who knew, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I was raised to really have a pretty good relationship with authorities, and I liked people who led, but if a leader was questionable, power mad, on some kind of a power trip, mean, I gave him a hard time. So today's story is about one of those leaders, and you probably know the story. When I was a kid, the big thing was this was the most scandalous story of all time because it's about an emperor who goes out in public with no clothes on. It's the emperor wore no clothes. So, our story today starts in the kingdom of Distrito di Colombiosa, out east. And this kingdom is a lovely kingdom. It is really a mostly nice kingdom, well run, been going strong for years. Good people who work hard, who raise their families, who grow their food, who conduct business, and mostly things are well. There is a ruling family who mostly over the generations has done pretty well. They've listened to the people, they've made changes, they have tried to be fair and equitable over the generations, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. At the time of this story, there is an emperor, however, who is not the greatest at leading his people. In fact, he's somewhat frivolous and silly, spoiled, enjoys his wealth and power because the family over the generations has developed wealth and power, and he and his friends sometimes overdo. They don't listen. And to make matters worse, he has many people around him who have discovered if we tell him what he wants to hear, if we go with him, he'll be happy, and that will be good for us. Now, one of the things that this emperor was really into was his clothing. He liked to look good. As a matter of fact, going to parties, being seen, being the absolute top celebrity was very, very important to him, and he loved this. Of course, the people around him would tell him, "You look great." And so he would, every week, ask his designers, "Design me something fantastic. Design me something amazing. Design me the best ever. I want to look like an emperor should look." And so the designers would do their best. And they brought him amazing things over the years. They brought him beautiful, fine red velvets with purple sashes. He wore headgear that had feathers and plumes. He wore jewelry wrapped around himself. Some of these things were undeniably gorgeous, and other things were actually quite ridiculous. But it didn't matter, because everything he wore, he was met with, "Oh, Emperor, you look amazing. What are you wearing? I've never seen that before." And of course, being encouraged like this just kept him going and kept him going. And the people would start wearing the things he wore. And they started believing that this was great leadership, that this was what we needed, was someone telling us how to look, what we should wear, no matter how ridiculous some of these things were actually turning out to be. So, you know who really was getting tired of this? The designers were getting tired of this, because they were trying their best, and this was their work. They tried to make good, beautiful, durable, useful clothing, and this guy was just pushing them to do crazy things, more and more and more. And they felt like they had to go with it, but they were getting tired. And he had his two top designers, which were Daru and Rayo. And these two designers were some of his best. And to be honest with you, they were getting tired, because they talked with each other about, like, this is nuts. This isn't what we want to do. Why are we doing this? So one day, the emperor had Daru and Rayo in, and he said, "This is it, parade, Tuesday, a parade for my wonderfulness. I want to look my best. I want the best outfit you have ever produced. Something only I, the greatest, can wear." Rayo and Daru looked at each other and said, "What are we going to do?" Rayo had a thought. Rayo asked the emperor, "Emperor, who will make the decision on what we wear?" And the emperor said, "Why, me, myself, I, of course, am the decider. I will decide if you bring me what I ask." Rayo had an idea. Rayo and Daru talked a little bit, and Rayo said, "Do you think, could we?" And so the designers went away. They came back a little bit later. And when they came back, Rayo having these moves like something was going on. The emperor looked at them and said, I'm not sure what I'm seeing. But they went through the motions. They held up this fine, as if they had material here. They ran their hands on it. They oohed and they ahed. And they made much over this. Now the emperor was really surprised. Didn't know what to say. And said, so what have we here? And Daru went on and said, why, Emperor, we have here the most amazing, amazing material that has ever been produced. So fine, so sheer, so exquisitely subtle. And the emperor said, yes. Might I ask, what color would you call that? And they laughed, and they laughed. And they said, oh, you jest, Emperor, you jest. Why, it is, would you not call it the kingliest color of all? And the emperor said, why, yes, I would, but will people see how kingly and wonderful it is? Reo and Daru said, of course, okay, wait, there are some people who don't have any taste, right? There are some people who don't know when they're looking at something wonderful, who may not see something. They may they might miss it, right? They may not get the truth of this. That is possible. But you and people who really know, fantastic. And the emperor said, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I think it's exactly what we should do. Fantastic. The designer said, King, the one issue is that we need you to pay us because, you owe us some things that you haven't paid us for in the past, and you need to pay us so that we can buy this, because it is very rare, very expensive, very exclusive. So if you can pay us, we can get this for you. The king agreed. The king was excited, and so they went off. But then that Tuesday, they came back, and Reo had the box. Opened the box, which was exquisitely packaged. They set it down, and then they pulled out the amazing outfit. They held it up again. Ooh, it's amazing. They patted each other on the back. This is amazing. This is amazing. The king was excited. The king was, I'm unbelievable. And so they went through the motions of they dressed him, and he wore the raiments and put it all on, and just started feeling so wonderful about this. He looked at himself in the mirror, and all he could see was an amazing, amazing emperor like no other. And he was ready. And then Reo and Daru said, Emperor, you're going to kill out there. You're going to absolutely slay him. It's going to be fantastic. We need to go so that we can be in the audience and watch your grand entrance. So we'll take our money and we will go. And they left. And they found a back door out of the castle, and they left the kingdom for a while. And the emperor stood to the front of the door, ready for the parade to begin. The doors were opened, and the emperor stood forth in his glory. And there was total silence. And everyone looked around in gasping, questioning awe. The king knew he was making an amazing spectacle. The prime minister came to the emperor and said, Emperor, your clothes. And the emperor said, yes, they are amazing. And the prime minister picked up quite quick and said, they are? And the emperor said, they are, like nothing anyone has seen before. The emperor got this real quick and said, yes, they are. They are like nothing anyone has seen before. You are amazing, sir. And so the emperor started to stride down the steps, forward into the crowd. There was silence, but people who were near heard the prime minister saying, you are amazing. This is unbelievable. This is absolutely the best of all time. And of course, the people near said, yes, Emperor, you're fantastic. You're amazing. You're beautiful. It is unbelievable. And this proceeded as he went down the steps. And the crowd tried to figure it out, but they heard those around them exclaiming such happiness and joy at how wonderful the emperor, who was naked, looked. And he proudly strode down the street. Finally, there was a voice of a young girl who saw this and without any thinking said, "The emperor has no clothes!" And there was silence. The emperor heard this and scoffed and said, "Here is one of these insignificant lowlifes who cannot see how grand I am," and continued to walk. But then soon there was another voice, and this was another child who said, "She's right, you know. He's stark, raving naked." In that moment, he faltered. He looked at himself, and he saw, "I'm naked." And he realized it. And the people around him started to realize it. And it's like it all fell away. And he was embarrassed. And he thought, I've been a fool. And he turned, he tried to cover himself. He turned and he ran off and he ran back to the castle. And for the rest of the day, for that parade, actually the townspeople sort of celebrated. They sort of celebrated this idea that, like, they should talk. They should say the truth. They should tell the emperor about himself. Enough of this. Enough of this silliness. And they praised the fact that this child, that these children, just without any kind of thought, said, "This is what's going on. This is crazy." And as happens in fairy tales, in this fairy tale, this changed the emperor. The emperor was never the same. He was shook by this. And as a matter of fact, from then on, he demanded the truth. He demanded people tell him what is really going on. And it opened his ears. And he heard that people weren't happy. He heard that he was seen as a bad leader. And so he changed. And so they lived happily ever after. May that be so. Join us in singing "We'll Build a Land." It's on page 121 of the hymnal. That all ends well. And yet in this story, in this tale, the important things still are there about telling the truth. And really ask yourself, who are you? Who are we in this story? Who is the hero? Are the designers the hero? The heroes because they tell him what he wants to hear and they dupe him and they use his ignorance? Is it the children? Who are you? Are you sometimes that emperor who hears what they want to hear? Or are you that child? Can we be those townspeople who realize and who celebrate? We need to tell the truth. We need to support each other and tell that truth to power. May it be so.